The soft glow of computer screens lit up Dr. Han Taeil's face as his fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. It was 3 a.m. at the Seoul International Science Complex, but he couldn't stop now. Not when he was so close to a breakthrough. Just one more variable, he muttered, reaching for his cold coffee. At 65, he was the oldest scientist still working active shifts in the xenolinguistics department. His colleagues often told him to slow down, but Han knew better. The universe wouldn't wait. The translation matrix on his screen pulsed with new data. After 30 years of studying alien languages, he had finally found a pattern that connected them all. It wasn't in the words or symbols. It was in the spaces between them, in the rhythm of their communication. A message notification popped up on his screen. It was from Dr. Kim Soo-ji, his best student, and now a brilliant researcher herself. "Professor Han, please tell me you're not still in the lab. The presentation is in 6 hours." He smiled at her concern. Soo-ji had been watching over him like a daughter since she joined his team 5 years ago. She was one of the few who understood why his work was so important. "Almost done," he typed back. "This could change everything. Soo-ji, the algorithm. It's not just translating. It's finding connections we never knew existed." His computer beeped as new results appeared. Han's eyes widened. The numbers were perfect, too perfect. He checked them again, his hands shaking with excitement. "This is it," he whispered. "The universal pattern." The security camera in the corner of his lab recorded his last moments. At 3:17 a.m., Dr. Han stood up suddenly, grabbing a tablet to record his findings. At 3:18 a.m., he clutched his chest, knocking over his coffee cup. At 3:19 a.m., he reached for the emergency button but couldn't make it. The tablet fell, cracking on the floor. The next morning, Dr. Kim Soo-ji found him. The medic said it was a heart attack, quick and unexpected. But as she looked at his computer, all she found was a locked screen and scattered notes that made no sense. News of Han's death spread quickly through the scientific community. He wasn't just any researcher. He was the man who had made first contact possible with 3 different alien species. His translation methods were used across the galaxy. In his office, Soo-ji sat with Dr. Lee Do-young, head of Earth's Xenobiology department. They were going through his papers, trying to understand what he had been working on. "Look at this," Soo-ji said, holding up a notebook. "He wrote something about predator species frequencies last week, but that's not his field." Dr. Lee frowned. "Han always said the best discoveries happen when we look outside our field. Did he save any research files?" "Everything's locked. He used quantum encryption on all his work." Soo-ji stared at the empty coffee cup still on his desk. "He was excited about something in his last message to me. Said he found connections we never knew existed." They spent hours searching, but Han's final discovery remained a mystery. As they prepared for his funeral, messages of condolence arrived from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to honor the human who had helped bridge the gap between species. But no one knew that Han's last discovery was about to bring an unexpected guest to his funeral, one that would change how the galaxy saw humans forever. Soo-ji looked out the window of the science complex, watching ships land with diplomats and scientists from a dozen worlds. Tomorrow, they would say goodbye to her mentor. But tonight, she had work to do. Something in those encrypted files held the key to Han's final equation, and she had a feeling they needed to find it fast. The day of Dr. Han's funeral was sunny and cold. The Seoul International Science Complex's main hall was filled with people from Earth and beyond. Floating translation devices hummed quietly, turning alien words into human speech. Park Jin-ho, the head of security, stood near the entrance. He didn't like having so many aliens in one place, but this was what Dr. Han would have wanted. His team had scanned every visitor 3 times, standard protocol when dealing with multiple species. Dr. Kim Soo-ji sat in the front row, her black dress wrinkled from a night spent in the lab. She hadn't found anything in Han's files yet. Next to her, Dr. Lee Do-young checked messages on her tablet. 6 more ships just landed, Lee whispered. The Galactic Council sent their whole science team. The ceremony started with Earth customs first, then moved through the traditional respects of 5 different alien species. Each one spoke of how Han had helped them talk to other worlds. Then the alarms went off. Red lights flashed as Park's security team rushed to their stations. A ship had entered Earth's atmosphere without permission. It was heading straight for the science complex. All guests, please remain calm. Park's voice boomed through the speakers. Our defense systems air. The building shook. Through the glass ceiling, everyone could see a dark ship hovering above them. It was black and sharp, like a hunting knife. Everyone knew that shape. It was a chrylation vessel, the galaxy's most feared predator species. Chrylatians never came to Earth. They never went anywhere except to hunt. The ship landed in the complex's courtyard. Security teams surrounded it, weapons ready. Park Jin-ho pushed through the crowd, ordering everyone back. The ship's door opened with a hiss of steam. A figure stepped out, and the crowd gasped. The chrylation was 3 meters tall, covered in dark scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its 4 arms ended in curved claws, and its head bore the bone-white crest of a high-ranking hunter. But what shocked everyone most was what it carried: a bundle of earth flowers, arranged in the traditional Korean funeral style. "Hold your fire," Dr. Kim shouted, running forward. She had seen something in the alien stance. It wasn't hunting. Its head was lowered, claws pulled close to its body, signs of submission in most predator species. The chrylation spoke, its voice like stones grinding together. The translation devices took a moment to adjust. "I am Rax. I come to honor Han Tae-il, who helped my people." Security teams kept their weapons raised. No one moved. In the history of Earth-alien relations, no chrylation had ever come in peace. "How did you know Dr. Han?" Suji asked, stepping closer despite Park trying to stop her. Rax placed the flowers on the ground with careful movements. "He solved a problem for us, a problem that was destroying my species. I must pay respects." Dr. Lee rushed to Suji's side with a scanner. "It's telling the truth. No weapons, and its biochemical signals show grief patterns." The crowd watched in silence as Rax performed the chrylation death rite, a complex series of movements that told the story of a life. But the movements it used weren't chrylation. They were mixed with human gestures of respect. As Rax finished, it turned to Suji. "There is more you must know. Han Tae-il left something unfinished, something that concerns all of us." Suji looked at the encrypted files on her tablet, then at the alien predator who had learned human funeral customs just to honor her mentor. What had Dr. Han discovered that could make a chrylation travel across the galaxy to attend his funeral? The meeting room was silent except for the soft hum of scanning devices. Rax sat perfectly still as security teams checked it for the 3rd time. Its dark scales had shifted to a deep blue color, a sign that Dr. Kim Suji recognized from her xenobiology studies as meaning patience. Park Jin-ho stood by the door, his hand never far from his weapon. "This breaks every security protocol we have," he said. "Crylations aren't allowed on Earth without a full Galactic Council review. And yet here I am," Rax said, "because Han Tae-il asked me to come." Suji looked up from her tablet. "Dr. Han invited you." "When?" 3 days ago. He sent a message about his discovery." Rax's 4 hands moved in careful patterns as it spoke. "He said it was urgent. I came as fast as I could." Dr. Lee Do-young rushed into the room, holding a datapad. "You need to see this," she said to Suji. "I found something in the communication logs. There are hundreds of messages between Han's lab and a location in chrylation space. They go back 2 years. Park stepped forward. "That's impossible. All alien communication is monitored." "Not if you use the gaps between official transmissions," Suji said, remembering something Han had told her. "The spaces between words. That's what he was studying." Rax's scales rippled. "Yes, Han Tae-il understood that communication is more than just words. He helped us speak to our prey species without causing fear. It changed everything for my people. The revelation hit Sujai like a wave. That's why Han had been studying predator species frequencies. He wasn't just translating languages. He was translating instincts, the deep signals that all species sent without knowing. "Show them," Rax said. Suja connected her tablet to the room's main screen. The security footage from Han's last night played again, but this time she noticed something new. In the corner of his screen, barely visible, was a pattern of lights. "That's a correlation distress code," Dr. Lee said, leaning closer. "The last message he sent me," Rax confirmed. He had found the key to something bigger, something that would change how all species communicate. But he needed my help to complete it. Park frowned. Why would he trust a predator species with something so important? "Because we were the hardest to understand," Rax said. If his method could bridge the gap between humans and correlations, it could work for anyone. Suji started typing rapidly on her tablet. The encryption on his files. It's not just quantum codes, it's layered with correlation hunting patterns. Her fingers flew over the keys, trying combinations of human and correlation sequences. On her fifth try, a file opened. Inside was a video message from Han, recorded the night he died. His tired face filled the screen. "Suji, if you're watching this, you've met Rax. Good. You'll need each other for what comes next. What I've discovered isn't just about translation. It's about survival. All of us, every species in the galaxy, we're facing a threat we can't see because we can't communicate properly with each other. The pattern I found, it's a warning. And only a human and a correlation working together can understand it." The video ended. Sujai looked at Rax, then at the others in the room. What they were about to do would break every protocol Earth had about working with predator species. But Han had trusted this alien. Now they needed to trust each other. Dr. Kim Sujai hadn't left Han's office for 2 days. Empty coffee cups littered the desk as she and Rax worked through files that were now unlocked. The correlation sat on the floor, its large frame too big for human chairs. "Another dead end," Suji said, rubbing her eyes. "These research notes stopped 6 months ago." Rax's scales shifted to a deep green, a thinking color. Han Tae-il was careful. He split the information into pieces. Park Jin-ho entered with more security reports. "The Galactic Council is demanding answers. 3 more correlation ships entered our solar system. They're my clan," Rax said. "They come to help, not hunt." Suji opened another file. This one was different, full of star charts and strange patterns. "Look at this." He mapped communication signals from every known species. The screen filled with overlapping waves and dots. To most people, it would look like random noise. But Sujo saw what her mentor had found. Every species' signals had gaps in the same places. These spaces, Rax moved closer, claws pointing carefully. They matched the silent periods in deep space readings. "What silent periods?" Park asked. Dr. Lee rushed in, holding new scans. "The gaps in signals between stars. Everyone thought they were natural breaks in cosmic noise. But look, they're expanding." Suji's hand shook as she overlaid Han's charts with the new data. He found it. Something's blocking communications in space, creating gaps that grow larger each year, but we never noticed because each species thought it was normal for them. Rax finished. Only by comparing all species signals could the pattern be seen. A hidden file appeared on the screen, triggered by their combined analysis. It was Han's private research log. His voice filled the room. "The entity hibernates between stars, feeding on communication itself. As species evolve and talk to each other more, it grows stronger. The gaps in our messages are its feeding grounds. In 50 years, it will be strong enough to block all communication between worlds. The galaxy will fall into silence." Sujai looked at the data with horror. Already, some species were losing contact with their outer colonies. Ships disappeared in the gaps between stars. Everyone blamed pirates or technical problems. But Han had seen the truth. Here's the last entry, Dr. Lee said, opening a file dated the night Han died. He found a way to disrupt the entity's feeding pattern, but it needs something from both humans and correlations. What does it need? Park asked. Rax's scales turned silver, a color Sujai had never seen before. Your music. Human songs have patterns that match our hunting calls. Together, they create a frequency that can hurt the entity. Suji grabbed her tablet, pulling up Earth's music archives. That's why he studied predator frequencies. He wasn't just translating. He was looking for a weapon. The room fell quiet as they realized what this meant. To save galactic communication, the two species that trusted each other least would have to work together. Han had known this. His last gift to the galaxy was forcing them to cooperate. The science complex was quiet as night fell. In Han's old lab, Rax stood before the assembled team. Its scales glowed softly in the dim light, creating patterns that matched its words. 3 years ago, our young began to die. Rax began. They would not eat, would not hunt. We didn't understand why. Dr. Kim Sujai recorded everything, while Dr. Lee monitored Rax's biological signals to confirm the truth of its story. Our scientists found that something was wrong with our hunting calls. The sounds we used to teach our children how to hunt were changing. The spaces between notes grew longer. Young ones couldn't learn properly. Park Jin-ho leaned forward. How did Dr. Han get involved? He contacted us. Rax's scales rippled with memory patterns. He noticed our ships changing course, avoiding certain space routes. He guessed we were having troubles with sound. Suji pulled up Han's early research. That's when he started studying predator frequencies. Yes, Han Tae-il came to our world alone. No weapons, no guards. He said he could help us speak to our children again. Rax's voice softened. We thought he was mad or suicidal. The screen showed Han's first visit to the correlation homeworld. He had recorded everything. In the videos, massive predators towered over him, but he showed no fear. He listened to our hunting songs for days. Rax continued. Then he played us human music. Simple songs at first. Lullabies. He said both species used similar patterns to teach their young. Dr. Lee checked her readings. The frequency patterns match. Both species used the same basic sound structure for teaching. Han Tae-il gave us new ways to call our children. Mixed human music with our hunting songs. The young ones started eating again. Started learning. Rax's scales turned gold, a color of deep respect. He saved our future. Suji understood now why Han had kept this secret. Earth's leaders would never have approved working with predators. But Han saw past species differences to the real problem. That's when he noticed the gaps growing. Rax said. He saw how the entity fed on all our signals, but he also saw how human music and correlation calls together could disrupt its feeding. The night he died, Suji said, he was trying to perfect the disruption pattern. Yes, he sent me one last message. Said he found the right combination, but his heart. Rax's scales darkened. I came too late. Park looked at the data streams flowing across the screens. So now we have predators and humans making music together to save the galaxy. No one will believe this. They don't need to believe, Rax said. They only need to listen. Suji opened Han's final files. He left us the framework. We just need to finish it. Then let us honor Han Tae-il. Rax said, by completing his work, my people are ready. Are yours. Outside the lab windows, more correlation ships appeared in the night sky. The time had come to show the galaxy what humans and predators could do together. News spread fast across Earth's networks. Correlations in Seoul, peace or threat. The headlines flashed on every screen as crowds gathered outside the science complex. Inside, Dr. Kim Suji watched the morning news with Rax. More alien ships arrived each hour. Not just correlations now. Other species wanted to know what was happening. The Galactic Council demands an explanation, Dr. Lee said, entering with new reports. They're sending representatives from every member species. Good, Rax said. They need to hear this. Park Jin-ho's security teams were stretched thin managing the growing crowd of reporters and diplomats. We can't keep this quiet much longer. Then we don't, Sujay decided. We show them everything. She opened Han's files on the main display. The data was clear now. Communication gaps between stars had grown 30% in the last decade. Ships were taking longer routes to avoid dead zones. Some colonies hadn't been heard from in months. The Galactic Council members arrived that afternoon. They filled the main hall where Han's funeral had been held just days ago. Humans sat next to correlations, who sat next to species that would normally be their prey. Sujai stood at the podium, Rax beside her. Dr. Han Tail discovered something that threatens all of us, she began. But he also found the solution. The hall erupted in noise as she explained about the entity feeding on their signals. Some called it impossible. Others demanded proof. Then Rax stepped forward. The room fell silent as the Predator played a recording, a mix of chrylation hunting calls and human music. The sound made everyone's skin tingle. In space, sensors showed the communication gaps shrinking wherever the sound reached. This is what Han Tail gave us, Rax said. A way to fight back. But it only works if Predator and prey work together. A council member stood up. Work with predators. Impossible. Look around you, Suji said. You're all sitting together now. If we can do this, we can do more. She showed them Han's research. How he had helped the correlations save their children. How he had seen that differences between species could become strengths. The entity feeds on our division, she explained. When we refuse to communicate, when we stay isolated, we give it power. But together, Rax joined in. Together, we can make sounds it cannot eat. We can take back the spaces between stars. The council members talked for hours. Some were angry. Some were scared. But as more ships reported success using the human correlation sound patterns, opinions began to change. By evening, the council had approved a joint human correlation task force to implement Han's solution across the galaxy. It would be led by Dr. Kim, Suji, and Rax. Han Tae-il would be proud, Rax said as they watched ships leave Earth's orbit. He knew it would take something big to bring us together. Suji smiled. He always said the best discoveries happen in unexpected places. In the sky above, human and correlation ships flew together, broadcasting a new kind of signal into space, the sound of former enemies working as one. The laboratory hummed with activity as Dr. Kim, Sujai, and Rax worked on Han's final equations. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. Ships reported the communication gaps were shrinking, but something wasn't right. The effect doesn't last, Sujai said, studying the data. The gaps close for a few days, then grow back. Rax's scales showed patterns of frustration. We're missing something. Han Tae-il knew this would happen. They had turned Han's old lab into their command center. Screens covered the walls, showing signal patterns from across the galaxy. Park Jin-ho entered with new reports from the fleet. 2 more colonies lost contact, he said. The entity is adapting. Sujai rubbed her tired eyes. They'd been working nonstop, but the solution kept slipping away. She looked at Han's last notebook, filled with scattered notes and drawings. Then she saw it. In the corner of a page, Han had drawn a simple wave pattern. Under it were words in Korean. Music needs dancers. Rax, she called. Show me your hunting movements again. The correlation stood, performing the smooth, deadly motions its species used to teach hunting. Sujai recorded the patterns, then overlaid them with human dance steps. Look, she pointed to the screen. The movements matched the music patterns. Dr. Lee burst into the lab. The deep space sensors just picked up something. The entity. It's not just feeding on signals. It's dancing. Everything clicked into place. The entity wasn't just eating their communications. It was moving in response to them, creating a deadly dance that pulled signals apart. Han knew. Suji whispered, "The sound pattern alone isn't enough. We need the movements too." Rax understood immediately, like teaching our young to hunt. The calls and the motions worked together. They spent the next 12 hours combining everything: human music, correlation calls, hunting movements, and dance patterns. The result was something entirely new. When they broadcast it into space, the effect was instant. The entity didn't just avoid the signal, it moved with it, following a new dance that kept it away from vital communication lanes. "Incredible," Park said, watching the space readings. "It's like we're teaching it a new way to move." Across the galaxy, ships began broadcasting the combined pattern. The gaps between stars started closing, this time for good. The entity had found a new dance partner. In Han's old office, Sujit found one last message, time to unlock only after they discovered the solution. "Music and movement are universal," Han had written. "Every species dances in its own way. But when we dance together, we create something greater than ourselves. Keep dancing. Suji, keep teaching others to dance with you." She looked at Rax, whose scales now shimmered with colors of joy. A predator and its prey, working together to teach the universe a new dance. This was Han's real legacy. 2 months after the discovery, Dr. Kim Soo-jae stood before the Galactic Council. The Great Hall on Europa Station was filled with representatives from every known species. Even the viewing galleries were packed, with predator and prey species sitting side by side. "The communication gaps are gone," Suji announced, showing the latest star maps. "The entity has learned to dance with us instead of feeding on us." Rax stepped forward, its scales glowing with formal patterns. "But that is not the only change. Other predator species have come forward, seeking what we found." The screen showed new data. 3 more predator species had contacted Earth in the past week alone. Each one wanted to learn the combination of music and movement that had saved the correlations. "We're calling it the Han Protocol," Suji explained, teaching predator species to blend their hunting patterns with prey species' peaceful movements. It changes both sides. A council member stood. "Show us." Suji nodded to Rax. The correlation began moving in the traditional hunting pattern, but something was different. The deadly grace was still there, but now it flowed like a dance. Suji joined in, her human movements matching Rax's rhythm. The council chamber filled with a sound that was both beautiful and strange, human music and correlation calls combined. Where there should have been fear, there was harmony. "This is what Dr. Han saw," Suji said as they finished. "The power of working together. Each new species that joins us adds their own patterns. The dance grows stronger." Reports came in from across the galaxy. Trade routes that had been dangerous for centuries were now open. Colonies that had been silent for months sent messages again. Predator species began sharing territory with their former prey. "The entity taught us something," Rax told the council. "It showed us that isolation makes us weak. Connection makes us strong." The council voted unanimously to make the Han Protocol standard practice for all species contact. Earth and the correlation homeworld would become training centers, teaching others how to blend their patterns. As Suji packed up her presentation materials, a young alien from a prey species approached her. "Is it true?" it asked. "Can anyone learn this dance?" "Yes," she smiled. "That's what Dr. Han wanted. A galaxy where everyone can dance together." Outside the station windows, ships from a dozen species moved in new patterns, their signals strong and clear in the spaces between stars. The entity danced with them, no longer a threat, but a partner in the galaxy's greatest change. Han's legacy had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. It wasn't just about saving communication. It was about creating something new. 1 year after Dr. Han's death, the Seoul International Science Complex was transformed. The memorial hall glowed with bioluminescent decorations from a dozen worlds. Species that once hunted each other now sat together, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Dr. Kim Soo-jae stood at the same podium where she had first defended Han's discovery. Beside her, Rax's scales shimmered with ceremonial patterns. The hall was 3 times more crowded than the funeral had been. 1 year ago, Soo-jae began, we gathered here to say goodbye to Dr. Han Tae-il. We thought we had lost his final discovery. Instead, we found something greater. The screen showed images from across the galaxy. Predator species teaching their hunting dances to prey species. Prey species sharing their music with former enemies. The entity, now visible in deep space scans, moving in beautiful patterns between the stars. The Han protocol has changed everything, Rax said. 15 predator species have joined the program. Trade routes are safer than ever. Lost colonies are back in contact. Park Jin-ho, now head of interspecies security, brought forward a simple wooden box. Inside was Han's old tablet, the one that had fallen when he died. We're opening the Han Institute today, Soo-jae announced, a place where all species can learn to dance together, just as he wanted. The new building stood where Han's small lab had been. Its design combined architecture from every member species, soaring crenellation arches, human geometric patterns, and elements from their new allies. A young crenellation stepped forward with its prey species partner. They performed the new dance they had created, moving in perfect harmony. Their combined signals made the entity in space ripple with response. Han Tae-il saw the truth, Rax told the audience. The greatest discoveries happen when we stop seeing each other as enemies. After the ceremony, Soo-jae went to Han's old office. They had kept it exactly as it was. His coffee cup still sat on the desk. But now, the walls showed images from across the galaxy, all the species learning to dance together. You would have loved this, she said to the empty room. Predators and prey, making music together, teaching the stars themselves to dance. Rax appeared in the doorway. The next group is ready to begin training. Soo-jae nodded, picking up her tablet. On the screen, the entity danced between stars, no longer a threat but a reminder. A reminder that the spaces between species could become bridges instead of barriers. That was Han's real legacy. Not just saving communication, but showing the galaxy a new way to move forward, together. As Soo-jae left the office, she saw Han's last note still pinned to the wall. Keep dancing. And the galaxy danced on.